in front of other people. And the kahuna were in shock, and they said, "Oh my gosh, you're one of the 7 sisters. Do you know who you are? Do you know that you're not from here?" And I started laughing. I said, "Well, I know I'm definitely not from here." So that was kind of my understanding of, okay, what does this mean? Why am I here assisting to bridge heaven to earth? And then since then, I started having more personal contacts with my tribe in various different ways. And recently, with COVID and with the Ascension, I was living in Paris, married, living a 3D timeline, even though I was operating on my own Ascension level, not really understanding what was about to occur. And my body was breaking down because I was experiencing so many activations and I couldn't ground the energy in the city. And the dolphins came in first, so also Syrian energy, and they said, you know, it was like they had to interrupt these energetic frequencies. Then the Pleiadians came in, and then they were like, it's go time. It's what you've been waiting for your entire life. It's go time. And this is the role you said you would play. But if you don't want to play it, you don't have to. But we have to tell you that if you play this, it's going to change your entire life. Your husband is probably not going to want to be married to you anymore.
And was that in Paris?
That was in Paris, yeah. And I said, basically, there's really no choice for me. I know who I serve. I know who I'm married to first, and let the chips fall where they may, you know, with utmost grace. And that's exactly what happened. So I came home and started playing this role, told my husband, I said, I'm going public. I'd been told to lie under the radar my whole life to be protected because I was attacked as a child. I was attacked a lot, almost sold into sex slavery in India, various different things, lots of sexual molestation, lots of being trapped by the Illuminati. So I was very much hiding under the radar. And it was the first time in my life that I had been told, all systems go, you're safe, come out completely. And I had been prepared for that at that point. And he was the only thing that didn't want me to do that. And so I said, I'm sorry, this is who I am, and I have to do it. And 3 days later, he asked me for a divorce. We'd been married for 5 months. So that's been my process. And it's been a healing of understanding that the divine feminine is awakening to the fact that she is not a sacrifice, nor to be bought or sold, and really understanding what it means to be sovereign. So I don't want to take up all of the time, but that's what's been going on for me.
Thank you, Nina. There's something is definitely trying to block us today, because it stopped recording, so I had to just click record there again. And that was, you'd already been speaking about a minute or two, Nina, so it didn't get what you said, Ariah. So maybe, Ariah, if you could give us just a quick introduction to you again. And I'm sorry, because it wasn't recording.
No, that's okay. Maybe I needed to do it again. Maybe I should have shared more or something. So there's always perfection, right? So what I had shared before was just that about 20 years ago, I was born and raised in New York City, and I was very into spiritual meditation and things like that. And I was doing exercises from the Pleaidian workbook. And then what happened was I had some powerful awakenings that opened up my psychic sight, but I also had all kinds of beings started to come to me, and they were extraterrestrial beings. And I had never had any exposure to any of that. And so I was getting positive beings coming to me, and then some that were, I spoke about the Anunnaki. And these were ETs that were malevolent at the time. I know some of them have chosen to heal, but there are still, well, we can get into that. And anyway, so they were attracted to a lot of my trauma. Nina was just talking about trauma. I also had trauma, including sexual molestation. And so basically I realized, well, I need to get a lot of healing. They must be coming to me because I have something to clear. And so I started working twice a week with a Pleaidian healer myself. Then I ended up studying in Mount Shasta with the teacher who wrote the book, and that I was reading, and I stayed there for years, even though I was a city person, and ended up falling in love. I felt like I finally had come home. And so ever since then, I've been doing Pleaidian healings. So.
And where are you both today in the world? Like, I know you're both in America, I think.
Mm-hmm. I'm currently in Connecticut in transition to Florida. So that's where I am right now.
Okay.
Near Mystic, Connecticut. So I'm near the water. Have to be near the water these days.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm finding the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Ariah, where are you?
I'm in California, also by the water in San Diego, but my family is getting ready to move. There's a lot of things, corrupt things going on in California, and we are not feeling that we're supposed to be here anymore. So we are looking into a lot of different areas right now to relocate. So, yeah.
I think there's a lot of people planning to move or moving, or planning to move anyway.
Yeah.
I know that I'm planning to move to either America or Canada as soon as possible. So, but I've got the whole process. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's strange because my guides always said to me when I was younger, you're going to be going to America. And I was like, no, I don't think so. You know, that, you know, I would think I was like 11 or 12 when they said to me. And I always just used to call them my guides. I didn't know who they were. But they said, yeah, America. And I said, no, they've got guns there. I was only 11 or 12, you know. So, but yeah, everything seems to be falling into place. I did see something on the internet the other day. And I don't know if it's true or not. But it was saying that Americans won't be allowed into Europe.
Yes, that is true.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're being labeled as having the biggest outbreak in the world, I guess now.
Yeah, and other reasons, as you both know.
Right. It's labeled as having.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
These numbers are quite skewed, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Convenient.
Yeah. And can you go into that a bit, Nina or Ariah, into what the reasons are? Because if what I'm seeing, what I'm intuiting is that if Americans aren't allowed into Europe, then surely Europeans won't be allowed into America. Surely
Well,
it's going to go that way. Surely. I could be wrong. I don't know, you know.
there's definitely an agenda to divide Americans and Europeans. Absolutely. It's actually what I was experiencing when I was over there. The mentality of Europe has very much been targeted, and this is not personal to any Europeans. I've actually made amazing brothers and sisters through this that are fully awake in Europe. But when I was living in Paris, I was attacked 24/7 because my mentality did not match the mentality of the French culture, specifically of the socialist government, and I was seen as a threat. So within that matrix system, if I opened my mouth and started sharing even what I did, it was immediately seen as like, oh, that's cute. But if I started speaking too much truth, I was seen as a threat. I mean, that's basically even what my husband said to me. You're dangerous to my mentality. So I learned, I didn't know this, I learned a ton when I was over there. But the European cultures have been very much taught to believe that Americans are conspiracy theorists. So when we come over and we start sharing truth about what's really going on in our country, like the chemtrails and the GMOs and all of these things, it was really interesting for me to get the reflection, which was, oh yeah, well, do you know that's because you were taught to be a conspiracy theorist and that started in the 90s and you're that generation? And I was like, what? No, it's because it's actually going on. The things I'm telling you about aren't talked about as conspiracy theories in America. We discuss these things openly. They're actually occurring. You can find proof. Oh, well, you know, that's just, you guys are all hysterical and that's just an American thing. So it was really amazing for me to see that the brainwashing had gone so deeply upon the Europeans to make them not trust what we were saying for a reason. And as a lot of Americans are awakening and we're on fire, as I've been told, we're on fire over here, it's like, get them away from the Americans. So that's what I see happening.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think you're right, Nina. You know, Ariah, would you like to add to that?
Well, I just think that's amazing that, yeah, that perspective of separation, because I haven't lived in Europe, I've only visited, so that's really interesting. And yeah, I think the United States we're trying to be outcasted, partially because of Donald Trump, because he's coming out and he's shutting down and addressing a lot of things in terms of the globalists that have been going on for years. And so the whole system being broken down is a threat. So they've got to keep this pandemic numbers high here. They've got to keep everybody under a certain controlled narrative so that, you know, we all are against Trump, because they're fighting for their lives right now.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah, both sides. You know, we're both fighting for our lives, really. So I've noticed, because I live in Portsmouth in the UK, and the British are, you know, they're well known for being very reserved and not getting in there. You know, they stand back a lot, mentality. But I've noticed that with my local supermarket in Portsmouth in the UK, that there's not many people wearing masks, which I think is great. And I think that's really a sign that people, you're either awake or not. You know, it is a sign. And there's quite a lot of people that aren't. There's definitely the majority of people that are not wearing masks in my local area, which I think is just fantastic. I think it's really great. And I was actually quite surprised by it. Because I think Portsmouth has got quite a low energy to it. You know, it's not a high vibrational place. So yeah, to me that's quite something. So could you say maybe a little bit about what's going on in your local area, or your county or your state?
Mm-hmm. Ariah, do you want to start?
Okay. Well, it's really bad in California. I mean, I don't want to be negative, but it's pretty extreme in California.
It's not about negative, it's about the truth.
The truth.
Thank you.
I'm sorry
Yes.
to interrupt, Raya.
Thank you. I'm like, I can't hold back, because, you know,
Please don't.
It's very oppressive. What were you going to say?
Please don't, because we all know, we can feel what's happening in California. I've been waiting to hear the truth, so please share.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's very, very oppressive. Well, you're talking about masking and, you know, the mandated masks, of course, and then we've got the rioting. We had, even near my parents' house, I've seen some people go, oh, there's no violence, you know, because that's what the mainstream media is saying, that it's not violent, there's no protests that are violent, but that's not true. Actually, near my parents, they had a bank burned down. They couldn't drive on their road. There were people breaking glass windows. So that, what a lot of the mainstream media is trying to say is that that's not true, and Trump's just saying that to play upon some sort of narrative, but it is true. There is violence, and but there hasn't been as much now. It was a few weeks ago. So, but it leaves you in a space where, you know, you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know, are they going to come back? Because our governor is clearly in on things and is, you know, not stopping it. So, you know, he's playing into the whole narrative that we need to have this situation with lots of protests and things like that, and the masking and keeping the numbers high here. And so as a result, you know, it's like every day we're looking like, what's going to happen next? You know, what's going to be closed. We have started opening, but now they've got a thing going, okay, the bars are causing the numbers to rise, so they're closing the bars. So what they're doing is they're trying as best they can in the government locally to make the economy continue to suffer, because it's all about creating a narrative where people say, oh, when Trump was president, the economy was so bad, we all suffered so much, so that he doesn't get reelected. So they're just pulling out anything they can. And because obviously this is a democratic state with, I think, corrupt leaders, including Pelosi, we've got a lot of things going on here that are lies. So, you know, and people that are believing it. So there's a lot of tension between people in terms of why aren't you wearing a mask, or why are you wearing a mask? So the mask is a really big boat of contention here for people. And it's trying, again, like you guys were saying, it's trying to create that separation, which is part of the agenda. You know, if you keep us separate, because deep down, unity is what is going to allow spirit, not just unity in terms of getting along, but the spiritual unity, us unifying as one people together. And so if you keep us all separate and confused, like, well, with all this opposing research and paid scientists saying one thing, paid by the globalists saying one thing to go opposed to the other science that we're bringing up, you know, people that aren't necessarily buying into it are bringing up, then you're keeping everybody upset and separate, including families, you know. That's been a thing for me. You know, I've got family members who are watching the mainstream news. I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate, and it's challenging, because if you believe one thing, your behavior is going to follow that. And if you believe another thing, your behavior is going to follow that. And those behaviors are contradicting and also threatening to the people that are watching mainstream news. So that's kind of, I could keep going, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah. I feel like we are all very much operating in these alternate realities right now, within even the reality of what is happening in our own states. I've been seeing that with myself, the way that I operate within this matrix. I chose to exit the matrix 2 years ago. And so when you choose that and you're saying, I live under the law of Creator God, you're giving Creator God permission to direct your reality. So the reason that I'm sharing that is because I think that people really need to understand that no matter what's happening in your states, if you are being supported by Creator God and you're operating in that matrix field, remember that what you're standing up for is what you should be standing up for. It is absolutely appropriate for you to say, I'm not putting a muzzle on my face. And yeah, you're going to stand up against the collective consciousness that is being brainwashed into believing that you should. But there are ways to go about this gracefully. And a lot of it just has to do with what vibration, as Ariah was saying, are we putting out? What do we believe? Because really, truly, what you believe creates your reality. And we are seeing that so amplified right now. So I want to just, the reason I'm leading into this is because I just left Florida. And so the difference between Connecticut and Florida was very extreme. I mean, I went into grocery stores and maybe 25% of the people were wearing masks. And I also absolutely do not believe that they're having a natural outbreak in COVID right now. That is a complete and total lie. I have no problem saying that. What is happening is they're pissed because they love Donald Trump. I was at that Donald Trump boat parade. Yeah. They're a red state. They love Donald Trump. A lot of them are awake. They know what's going on. Florida, specifically in the areas like Cocoa Beach, Satellite Beach, the areas where I was, light workers are coming in by the bucket load right now because it's Atlantis, and they know that. It is a connection to Atlantis. So it was very interesting to be there. Now, when we went into the Florida Orlando airport, the first thing that happened was I went to the hotel, and the hotel clerk said, you have to wear a mask here. And I don't know what came over me, but I just looked at him with a big smile and I said, we don't do that. He just didn't even know what to say. He was like, what do you mean you don't do that? And I was like, yeah, well, it's for personal health reasons, and like, we're not going to be doing that, but I respect you. I respect that you're doing your job, but we'll lay under the radar and keep it cool. And he just stood there dumbfounded looking at me. Silence passed, and finally he was like, okay, what am I going to do? Then I went into the airport the next day, completely not even realizing that I was the only person going through the entire airport, through security and everything, without a mask on, until I finally got to the gate and realized, oh my God, I've been in this entire airport for hours and I'm the only person that's not wearing a mask. And no wonder, like, so it was just this check of, you know, what reality are you creating? And yes, I wore a mask. I had to wear one to get onto the flight. Little suggestion to everybody, when you get on the flight, you know, play the little game. Once you're sat, you know, do this, cover it with your hair, whatever. They're not really going to say anything, because if you're nibbling on things, they don't know. They don't know if you're in the midst of eating. So we can kind of find ways around this. Also, in Connecticut, I just tried to go to the casino. I was told, sovereign land, you have to wear a mask. I said, I have health issues. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm exempt from that. They said, it doesn't matter. This is sovereign land, because it's run by, you know, the sovereign tribes, which is amazing to me that they're the ones now enforcing the masks. So I left. I just leave. I would rather go elsewhere than be forced to be, masked.
Sorry, Nina, where was that? What state was that in?
So that's Connecticut.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm sorry. So I came back to Connecticut, and since being here, I can go into the grocery stores without a mask on. Nobody really bothers me. That was the first time that I was told no entry, and it's because they're under a different legal law. I don't know enough about it, but because they're sovereign, it's their land, it's their casino. And I almost felt like saying, you do realize that like, as sovereign beings, you should actually definitely not be enforcing that we have to wear these muzzles. So yes, there's different realities going on in Connecticut. This is the one that I'm existing in. And I was very happy to hear on a local radio station, and shocked and super excited. They were discussing about how the masks are completely unhealthy. It's all a deep state agenda. It's all a Marxist agenda. And it's all because they don't want Donald Trump to win again, and they're trying to destroy the country. And I was just like, awesome. So a lot of people are waking up.
And I even saw a post on Facebook the other day, or last week, or whenever it was, that a governor in one of the states, a black governor in one of the states, has said that the black people don't need to wear the masks, but the white people do. So
yeah, Oregon
was it? That I thought that was great when he said that, because not because it's good, but because he's shining a light and exposing that this is bullshit, this is BS. Just because the color of someone's skin, I mean, what has that got to do with anything? It doesn't make any difference whether someone's white or black or blue or green or blue, whatever, you know, pink with white spots. But so he's kind of calling them out, really, because he's exposing that it makes no difference. So yeah, it's crazy times, it's beautiful times, but everything is birthing process, isn't it? It's, excuse me. I did want to talk a bit about Atlantis today, because the Pleiadians, I'll just try and do it very quickly, because I don't want to, I want you guys to talk as much as you can. And Ariah, I know you've only got an hour. So I'm not even sure how long we've got left, but so I'll just talk very quickly and try and get everything in. So basically what the Pleiadians have showed me is that it's very similar to the time of Atlantis, where negative ET energy came in and overtook Atlantis, and then the downfall of Atlantis. And they also changed their DNA at the time of Atlantis. And our Earth was hit by a large meteor that put the Earth off its natural axis. And there were great catastrophic events on Earth because of that. And at the same time, our DNA was changed at the time of Atlantis. And now everything is in a reversal of that. So our Earth is shifting back to its natural axis. And that will also bring natural catalytic events. And not to put fear into people, because they don't want to, it's not their, they don't want to put fear into people, the Pleiadians. That's not where they're coming from. They just simply want to inform people of what's to come, of what's possibly to come. So the Earth is shifting back onto its natural axis. And we, as humanity, our DNA is raising, our consciousness is raising back to its original blueprint, its original DNA. What they've also told me is that about 13 strands of DNA, not 12. So they either mean that we're going back to a time of when we had 13, or we're going into a new era where we will have 13 in the future. So we either had it, I mean, we're definitely going into a time where we have 13 in the future. Whether we had 13 in the past, I'm not sure. So, I mean, yeah, I'll just open that up for you guys if there's anything you want to add to that. I mean, what have they said to you? Have they said anything to you about the Atlantis? And because they've shown me that Atlantis was, what I believe is Atlantis was where the Antarctica is now. That's where I believe it to be.
Nina, I know you're moving to Florida, and that a lot of people are saying the new Atlantis is there now, I guess because of the movement of the poles. And are you saying that you feel it's still in Atlantis, or?
I feel that there are aspects of Lemuria and Atlantis scattered all over the globe. This is just what I have felt as I've traveled. And it would make sense because we took the different codes, and so they are placed in Gaia within the light grid in different areas. And I felt that so strongly in Florida. I really did. So as far as what the Pleiadians have been showing me about Atlantis, yes, it's very much in alignment with what you shared just now. And also, a lot of what's happening is we're having these post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm going to say past traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder that's being triggered by what's happening right now. Because what's happening right now is exactly what they did at that time. They're just trying to do it again. And so I see it as a divine order of events that have to play out for us to actually have the light bulbs go off, so our souls actually go, why is this familiar to me? Why is wearing this muzzle familiar to me? Why is being enslaved familiar to me? Why is being limited? Why is being directed? What is triggering me? It's also when they disconnected us from the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And so as we are awakening and remembering this, the best thing that we can do is go back to that timeline, and we all can. Everybody can do this. It's very easy. You just go into your meditation and you just want to go there. You go into your heart. It's a stargate. You can time travel very easily into all the different windows of time that you've experienced. They're all happening right now. And ask to be shown what you went through, because I guarantee it's parallel to what you're experiencing right now. I also have been told by Gaia, and not to spread fear, but there will be great earth changes. And we need to listen. So if you're being told to relocate, Raya, I'm so happy you are, because I was getting that message for you, and I figured you were too. So I'm just really happy to hear that you're relocating. Do it. Don't wait until it makes sense. Please do it. That's what happened for me. They came in, they said, if you don't leave Paris now, you'll be trapped here. Well, guess what? COVID hit, 3 weeks later. It hit Paris 2 weeks later. I didn't know. I always listen. So we really need to pay attention right now, because yes, there's a 4D timeline going on, 3D timeline. There's also this 5D timeline. And if you're operating from that place, you are going to be safe no matter what occurs. And there are beings that are going to suicide off this planet. They're also going to be sort of destructed off this planet through these earth changes and shifts. And it's what they signed up for. It is destiny. But those of us that know that we're here for a different reason and we know who we are, we have nothing to fear. We already won. Came back from the future. And so we need to remember that we came back from the future. We're watching all of this play out, but it's not like, ooh, is God going to win? I'm not really sure. No, God's going to win. We already won. So we need to remember that, because it's so important to not let this fear come in and penetrate you. We need to remember that we already know how this love story ends. And can we all agree on that? I know that you ladies know that.
Yeah.
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 Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's so much about connecting into source and being guided every step of the way. And it's true. I've had a few things happen, attacks on multiple levels, electromagnetically, and also with different beings from the cult. And also energies from actual people. So between all that, it has taught me every time I get alerted what's happening, even though it's covert, and I get the guidance on what I need to do, and it has worked every single time. But doesn't mean you go unscathed. Like, there's been a little bit of, it's like it still can hit you for a second, but doesn't mean that you have to go into the full dismantling of yourself and, be fully harmed. So it's so important to be aware and just connecting and listening every day, because we are given everything we need.
And yeah, and there's something that keeps coming up for me again and again and again, that I keep seeing so clearly, is that trauma. They've really tracked and traced us before our births, before we even knew who we were as kids. Even if we were connected to the Pleiadians, like I was, I didn't know it was the Pleiadians. I just thought it was my guides. I knew about guides because they were there talking to me. So it wasn't until many years later that I was shown that they actually knew both sides, both the positive and the negative, knew who I was. Before I even got here, before I knew who I was. And have tracked and traced me energetically, so that they can put trauma into me to so that I'm not able to do the work that I'm meant to be doing. But that has actually propelled me to do it even more. One thing I used to say to my abusers in my mind was, I'll be damned if I let you. I'll be damned if I let you. And I never finished the sentence, but in my own mind. But what I meant was, I'll be damned if I let you control the rest of my life because of that memory. I'll be damned. So, I mean, they have no idea what the powerful kind of tsunami of energy that is doubling back on them. And they don't understand love. They don't understand love frequency. They're not able to hold it in their own frequency. It's two opposing energetic forces that are having this war dance all at the same time. And I mean, of course God is going to win, because there is nothing higher. There's nothing higher than God's source. So of course God's going to win. God has already won, and we are God's source. Even they are part of God's source. So therefore they are part of us, because it's all the same thing. It's just polar opposites. So yeah, that's my, I'll stop there, because I could just go on and on and on. So
love wins. It's what you're saying. Love wins, and it's a high vibration that is the truth. And truth wins, because everything else is an illusion. And so these global elite groups that are doing satanic magic, their magic may do some things, may get some things done, but it's not more powerful than love. And they can do whatever they want. It only has so much power to it. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, because there's nothing more powerful than that love source, because that is God's source. That love vibration, that love energy, that, yeah.
I'm going to play devil's advocate over here for a moment because it's what was shown to me. I was shown that before this great separation occurred, before we sort of fell out of, and it was meant to be. So I don't even really like to call it when we fell or the separation, because it was also part of the evolutionary process. We chose to experience separation. We've chosen to experience all of this. And by the way, if you're a light worker and you want to be in denial that you've also been, you know, one of them and you've done the bad stuff too, you better let that go because you've done it too. That's part of it, is we all have to face that in ourselves. They exist within us. And the only way that that's going to dissolve is if we forgive ourselves and love ourselves and understand that everybody's in a different place on this journey. And so if you know that siphoning off energy from other people, harvesting them is not right, then possibly you did it. Maybe you did it in Atlantis. A lot of us that were priests and priestesses, when we went through this big shift, we had to go and experience the shadow aspect of the priest and the priestess. So if you're a very highly, you know, anchored light worker, that means you went into the polar opposite of that darkness to experience what that was. So a lot of the trauma that we're actually experiencing is the remembrance that we don't want to face, that we did what they're doing to us. And when we face that, we'll actually be able to heal it within ourselves. Well, rather than seeing it as something outside of us that we have to battle with against, by sending it love and understanding and forgiveness, it no longer persists because it can't. There is no energetic, you know, magnetism. Like Ariah, you said, when you have wounds, you're attracting the magnetic vibration to those wounds until those wounds are filled with love and they're integrated back into the light. And then suddenly your world changes and you're like, how did that happen? It's really because it's all a reflection of the inner world. So what I've been experiencing a lot in my sessions with clients is a lot of trauma. But the funny thing is everybody wants to say, oh, I remember Lemuria. I was this light being and I was that light being, and I'm like, yeah, and actually, do you remember that Atlantis that you actually did this and you did this and you participated in that? And that's actually why you're being attacked so much in this manner, because you actually did what they're doing. You played that role and you need to remember it. You need to face it. So that's the part of devil's advocate. The other part is that I really see them as a catalyst for our awakening, because every time that they've come into my life and they've attacked me, wow, did Source use that for Source to take me and lift me up even higher? So that's just a microcosm of the macrocosm that we're experiencing on a grand level. As they're attacking the world so hard, what the heck do you think Source is doing with that? They're pushing us into the evolutionary event, into the awakening. The more that they attack, the more people are waking up. Yeah. In some ways, they are like masters in the opposite side. And so rather than see them as enemies, and no, that doesn't mean I'm inviting them in. It doesn't mean I'm working with them. It just means that I understand that the shadow has a lot to teach us.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what you're saying, Nina. I totally get it. I think they haven't seen they didn't realize the effect it was going to have. I just keep seeing this wave of energy, like a tsunami, doubling back on itself and actually overtaking the rising above the negative forces. I just keep seeing that as an image, and they do show me a lot in images because that's an easy way for me to get it. I was going to say something else then. Oh yeah, okay, food shortages. I keep getting told about food shortages to come. So I've put it out a couple of times on Facebook, because they want people to be informed. That's part of why I'm here, is to help people to put out the information that they give me. So I've stocked up everything I can. But is there anything you two want to share about that, or about the Earth changing back into its original axis? I heard Jerry Sargent saying the other day that he had seen maps of the UK where it was underwater. So yeah, and I got some information the other day. I didn't even get a chance to write it down yet, but Wales would be hit, or there's big changes coming for us and for Earth, for Mother Earth, because everything is connected, and what happens on Earth not only affects Earth. It's not, our energy is not contained to Earth. It's far reaching, it's far expanding. So what's happening on Earth at the moment does affect the whole universe, So it's not limited to Earth. So is there anything you guys would like to say about that? I mean, have you had any downloads or any information given about what areas, or have you, I mean, I know that we need to stock up, but like, what have they said to you? And Nina, I just want to say that I do totally agree with what you're saying about Atlantis and different places, because I even feel that it wasn't one place, it was several different places, because I do feel the energy of the west coast of Ireland was very connected to Atlantis. And that, I was actually living in Lewisburg in the west coast of Ireland when I started to channel the Pleiadians. And I was 2 minutes from the beach, and it was beautiful beach, and I had quite a few experiences on the beach. So yeah, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and I want to answer your question, and also want to comment on what Nina said, and I'm in total agreement. I mean, when we first start doing healing with anybody in the Pleaidian Lightwork system that I do, we always look at where was the black satanic witch lifetimes that you need to clear, or warlock lifetimes. What past lifetimes have you had where you were, where you were maybe a malevolent extraterrestrial being? And that is such a big part of it, having to go through those experiences within your own soul to be able to transcend it and then hold the light. And one of my teachers used to always say, the more bigger light you are, the bigger the shadow. So that means you had a humongous shadow in the past. If you're a really big light being now, you have an equal amount of shadow that you created. And I think right now, what's been going on is we really are trying, I agree with the evolutionary part, we're really trying to transcend duality. This was, some people say it was an experiment. I don't know what you guys' view on that is, but
Ariah? Nina? Can you guys hear me? Nina? Ariah?